All right, guys, before we get started with this week's Wrestling Perspective with myself, Petey Williams, and our guest Tyson Dux, I just want to do a quick little house cleaning. First and foremost, I didn't say it during this podcast, and I feel horrible. I want to do it now. But if Petey's listening, which God forbid, he listens to his own podcast, Petey Williams, I want to wish you a very happy birthday. This past week was your birthday. I believe it was Saturday. We recorded. I didn't bring it up, but I wanted to wish you a happy birthday here before we start the podcast. You're one of my best friends. You have rejuvenated my podcast career. It has, words cannot sum up, and I'm going to get a little bit Philly here. So put on your man pants, people, and just go along for this ride. But Petey, words can't describe what our friendship has meant to us, what you doing this podcast has meant for my career. It has rejuvenated my love for podcasting, radio, even wrestling. It's nice. It's refreshing. I love what I'm doing right now. I love who I'm doing it with. And without you, Petey Williams, none of this would have been possible. I wouldn't be doing the Dougcast with James Ellsworth. I don't thank you enough. So before we started the podcast, I just wanted to say happy birthday and thank you. It's been an amazing year plus that we've been doing this podcast. We're doing things I never imagined. I've always wished I could do, going backstage, hanging out with people. We're talking about doing a live podcast sometime somewhere, putting that together, and none of this would happen without your friendship. So from me and my family, my friends, I'll throw my friends in, they don't really care, but and our fans, I'm sure our fans will wish you a happy birthday too. But happy birthday, Petey Williams, and thank you so much. Also, by the way, in this podcast, there's a little bit of crack sometimes when Petey talks. Forgive it. It was him. I don't know how to fix it, but you'll hear it. Don't get too annoyed. No big deal. Tyson Dux, phenomenal. Thank you, Tyson Dux, for coming on. And let's start the podcast. All right, it's time for the Wrestling Perspective podcast. I'm Dennis Farrell, and he's the man to the north of me, the guy who loves to do flips and sometimes drops people on its heads. It's Petey Williams.
How's she going, eh?
Going good. I can't wait. I would say, and this is tricky, inside baseball, Pete, but I'm going to be honest with our fans. We might have Tyson Dux on this podcast. We tried to record before we were actually recording this part. Then Tyson's phone messed up, and then the Skype messed up. Then we finally had something somewhat good enough to record with, and his kid got up. So now we decided that we'll do the first part first, and maybe we get him, maybe we don't. You guys will know in real time, as we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he said that, he just got a new phone. So, a new phone, you'd think everything would be good. And then, but he did say that he did a podcast, last week, and he said it sounded like he was in a well and all this kind of stuff, kind of like what we were hearing too. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. We hope we get him on. I know a lot of people have been asking us, which I was a little shocked. Like, yeah, Tyson Dux. I'm like, you guys want to hear from Tyson Dux? We'll give you Tyson Dux if you want him. All right.
Yeah, that's the easiest guess we can get, I think. So
as long as his phone works, I guess.
Which will turn out to be the hardest. As we said, we don't know. Right? Before we get started, let's do some promoting up front. Don't forget WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. You can go there, get all of your podcasts. iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play. Anywhere you get your podcasts, that's where we are. If you don't listen, but like on a podcatcher or something like that, it's something new. I'm learning the lingo, kids. Go to wrestlingperspective.podbean.com. Go there, subscribe. If you listen on iTunes, please subscribe, rate 5 stars. Right now, PD, as we speak, we're in the top 20.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, that's I guess not shocking because remember we were at like number what?
4?
I think we got up as high as 2.
Yep.
I thought I had 2 one day. I got a picture of it. I remember, so I could show my grandkids, and then that way my grandkids could say, "What's a podcast?" Because this probably wouldn't even exist when I have grandkids. Anyways.
Yeah, one day, kids, we will be so far high up. Yeah, I know. So do that, WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. Sorry about that. I was actually trying to look at the charts as you were talking. I'm like, I hope he keeps chatting away because I've got nothing until I can actually see this.
Yeah, probably not even on the charts right now. But by the end of this podcast, we'll probably be number 1.
We're 28 overall right now. Let's see here. We're ahead of the Dan Le Batard show. If you're a sports fan, a bunch of ESPN Stephen A. Smith we're ahead of. A bunch of fantasy football podcasts. Yeah, we're ahead of Stone Cold Steve Austin right now.
Hey, I mean, we're ranked pretty high on our, on podcasts. I mean, I just wish I was ranked that high in the PWI 500.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because I actually went to buy it and then it didn't show up, so I couldn't really dive into the PWI 500. You showed me, which hopefully I didn't lose it. Which once again,
I got it right here.
Yeah, it makes me look Bush League, I believe. So let's talk about the PWI 500 a little bit. The top 10 has been released. We'll go back and look at that here in a few minutes. But let's really deep dive into Impact Wrestling wrestlers and where they rank on this list because there's some surprising names, and some of them I'm friends with. So it's going to sound like I'm putting them down, and maybe even them themselves would go, yeah, that's a little high for me.
Yeah, I mean, so do you know the highest I've ever ranked on the PWI?
I'm going to guess you, at one point, and since it's been around for 28 years, you created the Canadian Destroyer. I'm going to say 54.
I was higher than that, actually. I think I want to say it was either 23 or 26. I believe it was 23. And that was, I believe, in 2000 so they do like from July of one year going into June of next year, something like that. So I want to say 2004 back half and 2005 front half. And I mean, I feel, and that's how they rank you. They rank like, championships and accomplishments and win-losses and all this kind of stuff. That was a year for me. Like, I mean, 2004, in August, I won the X Division championship, and then I had the longest reign at the time. That same 12-month period, I won the Super 8, which is like a really prestigious, it used to be a very prestigious tournament. I mean, it kind of still is. Just like pay-per-views, TVs, lots of wins, all that kind of stuff. Doing other indies and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, 23 was like, okay, yeah. And that was the highest ever ranked. And that was like almost like the first time I was on the PWI 500.
Wow.
Now, my big number is 196, which I think is pretty fair considering I came back, haven't really had any championships or accomplishments. This is kind of my second run around. I mean, I didn't rank in the past 3 years because I haven't wrestled. So I'd say that's totally fair. I mean, I think that's a little bit too high for me, I would say, but totally fair.
Austin Aries comes in at 25. He's the highest ranking Impact wrestler with Pentagon Jr. at 30. Eli Drake at 32. Johnny Impact at 47. Eddie Edwards at 55. Felix at 61. Matt Sydal. Thanks. Matt Sydal at 66. Ishimori at 104. Moose at 108. Brian Cage at 118. And here's one of the shocking ones. It's Sami Callihan at 121. I would put, with the year and the momentum Sami Callihan has had, I would have easily put him in the 60s without blinking.
Yeah.
I would
say, Eddie Edwards, he was the first Gaijin to win the Noah heavyweight championship. So I kind of get why they put him up so high. But I mean, I would have put Sammy up way higher. I agree. I mean, he's blown up. So I agree with you on that one.
I've got no issue with Austin, Pentagon, Eli. As much as I love Eli, and I am the biggest Eli fan. I've been begging you to get Eli Drake on this podcast. I feel like he should be lower than 32.
No, because he won the belt after we had the big. I think Alberto El Patron he had that DV charge and he got suspended for a while, and then Eli Drake won the championship in August, and he held that up until Austin Aries got here in, I believe, January. So I mean, I would rank him high like that.
But so, I think we're disagreeing on this because I think him and Johnny Impact, I would have put into the 50s and 60s, not in the 30s and 47. I could easily have put Sami Callihan ahead of both of those guys with the year he has had. Brian Cage probably should be higher too, not with just what he's done with Impact, but Lucha Underground also.
Yeah, and I mean Johnny Impact as well. He's in Lucha Underground as well, so you could say that.
I guess you're right about that.
That same thing, yeah. I mean, it's kind of fair, those rankings, I would say. Just looking at like LAX, both of them are at 124 and 126. Trevor Lee 123. He had a good year. I mean, he's kind of fell off in the first quarter and second quarter of 2018.
He was X
but the back
champion.
half this year was really good.
He was the X Division champion for the longest time, right?
Yeah, he was. And he's still putting on good matches and all that kind of stuff.
Rich Swann at 132. I'm okay with that. 134, Congo Khan. I'm okay with that. The Chris brothers at the 135 and 140, respectively. Let's drop down a little bit more to Abyss at 180. He doesn't wrestle enough to.
No, I think Abyss had one match, and I want to say it was at Bound for Glory last year against Grado, and it was a Monsters Ball match, and it was horrible. I mean, and Abyss knows that, like, Grado doesn't do Monster Ball hardcore type matches, and that's just on Impact, though. Abyss still does a lot of work on the indies. You know, he tells me he's every weekend he's working and all that kind of stuff. So, I was kind of shocked with the 180 because I really think he's had one match, maybe two. I know at Slammiversary last year, I guess in July, he had that match with Steiner and Josh Matthews and everybody. Who else was in there? Jeremy Borash. So maybe he's had a couple matches.
Yeah, definitely not enough to be at 180. If you're going with past credentials, sure. I mean, what he's done has been very impressive, and I don't want to take anything away from that. But if we're talking about just this year, he does not need to be at 180. We talk about you at 194. Do you feel like that's an accomplishment for you?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I've been ranked like I said, up to 23. I think I was down in like the 200s before. I mean, and that's the thing with Pro Wrestling Illustrated, like once you get like down further, like past the 250s and all that kind of stuff. Now there's more wrestlers that people know, but like, you know, back like 10, 15 years ago, you know, they're just like randomly drawing people's names out of a hat when you get in the last 200 or 300 guys. Like I remember you had to like submit like, hey, you know, to PWI, like, hey, I got stuff, and they'll like throw you somewhere on the list. So, you know, but they take, I would say they focus a lot on the top 10. So I would say like that's kind of legit, the top 10. And then, yeah, maybe the top 50 is like more legit, and then they're looser at the top 100 and very loose at the 200. And then after that, it's kind of like, all right, let's just put name values up near the top and then everybody else on the bottom. I mean, that's how they do it.
So here's the deal. I love Stone Rockwell. I love what he's doing. I love the character. He has been amazing to me. But for Stone Rockwell, and Stone, if you're going to listen to this, and I apologize, Maybe I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I will give you the time on this podcast if you want to defend your spot, which I don't know if you agree or not. But to be ahead of Desmond Xavier, Killer Cross, well, I don't know, because Killer Cross, Joe Henry, and Grado, that's all subjective since they've really had their push, in the last few months. Well, not Grado so much, but Joe Hendry, Desmond, I would put them about on the same level. I like Desmond a lot. Where Stone Rockwell has perfected the character, I think Desmond Xavier needs to grow on the character.
Yeah, I mean, Desmond Xavier, you got to remember, he won the, whatever, the Super X Cup or whatever it was called. Like, that's a big deal in Impact. But also, like, he's like an internet darling with him and his boy, Zachary Wentz. They're the Rascals as a tag team on the Indies, and they're making waves. So, I mean, he's ranked kind of too low. Like, I mean, he's almost 100 away from not even making it. So that's kind of BS if I was, like, really analyzing this. But Stone Rockwell, I mean...
I like Rockwell.
Yeah. Obviously, like we love him. He's like a friend of the podcast. But yeah, I mean, like I said, once they start getting lower, they're just kind of throwing names out there, and that's that. I mean, Sanjay at this point, he's ranked 343. He was X Division champion on the first couple months when this, like July, August. I think he even had it into September maybe. So, but then he pretty much stopped wrestling after that. And then Jimmy Jacobs, he does a lot of stuff in the Indies. So I'd say that's a fair number for Jimmy, I would say, possibly, since he's considered just a manager on Impact. I'm trying to look at other ones. Yeah, Kingston as well. Kingston, he's a manager on Impact as well. But those guys also do a lot of Indies.
Right. Let's talk about the top 10 real quick, and then we'll get our guest on here in probably about 5 minutes. Kenny Omega at 1. No arguments there.
No, Kenny's great. I've wrestled him a handful of times, and man, he's the best in the world. I mean, he should have been number 1 if he wasn't. I think I would have questioned it, because I think the year and that 12 months that we're talking about that he's had with matches with Okada and stuff, definitely. And it's the first time, not the first time, but I think they said back-to-back years where a non-WWE guy was number 1. Because I think Okada got it last year, and you have Kenny Omega having it this year. Both New Japan guys. I mean,
right.
This is crazy. It's like New Japan's a top promotion in the world almost right now, you'd think.
AJ Styles at 2, no complaints. I think that's good. Okada at 3. Here's my issue. At number 4, Brock Lesnar. As much of a beast as he is, he's wrestled, 10 times in the last year, if that?
If that, yeah, maybe less than that.
As much of a beast he is in lack of wrestling, I feel like it should have hindered him. He should have been down at maybe 9, 10, 11, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he has had the belt that entire time that they had that, so it's kind of like, how do we justify ranking him lower?
It's lack of wrestling.
Exactly. I mean, but then they also do take into account championship reign. I mean, it's usually champions, when they're contracted with a wrestling company, they're defending it quite often, a few times a month, whatever. Brock Lesnar, it's once every other month, maybe. Or maybe he might defend it every month for a couple months and then take 3 months off or whatever. So I mean, it's kind of tough to rank Brock Lesnar, but he, maybe not 4. That's how you said he's at 4 right now.
At 4.
Yeah, I mean, I might have scooted him down to 9 or something like that. I would think that'd be kind of more fair, even though he's been champion the entire time.
Other names on this list quickly before we get on to our interview tonight. Seth Rollins at 5. I think that's fair.
He had a great year. Yeah,
I put him at.
I mean, 4. I might think that's. I don't know. Let's see the rest of it, because I might actually put him a little bit lower.
Well,
because I would have put somebody like a Cody or something higher.
That's interesting. Here's the rest of the bottom five. It's Seth Rollins, Braun Strowman at 6, Roman Reigns at 7, Cody Rhodes at 8, Naito at 9, and The Miz at 10. Now, just for me, I think Roman Reigns is perfect at 7. Like him or hate him, boy, he's been doing, staying on top despite the hate. You got to respect that. I would lower Braun Strowman down just because he hasn't really done anything important. A few tests of strength, no real character development. He just flips back and forth now. He's like the modern day Big Show, heel face. He hasn't really done anything other than winning the Money in the Bank that has emotionally invested in me. I could put him in the top 10, but at 6 is high because I can't justify The Miz, Naito, or Cody Rhodes being below Braun Strowman right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. If you look at Braun Strowman's win-loss record, though, I mean, he's barely lost any matches, for as many times as he wrestled. They do take that into account. And he's had a great year. Like, that's what I look at it. Like look at what he was doing at this time last year. I don't know where he ranked it. We should have researched 2017.
It's too much work.
I don't know where he ranked. Yeah, I know it's too much work, right?
Yeah.
For this fly by the seat of your pants podcast. But yeah, I mean, he had a great year. Out of any guys that got a push to the top like he did, I would say he's one of the guys that one of the top guys. He got one of the top pushes, the biggest push in wrestling industry. So I mean, oh man, it is tough. I mean, you look at Cody. I mean, I think in the last 12 months, he did win the Ring of Honor title, didn't hold it for long. But he's doing this all in. You just hear his name a lot more now. So, I mean, they do a lot of work in that top 10. And I mean, I might have rearranged it a little bit, but I definitely put Kenny Omega 1. I agree with them. AJ Styles 2. Absolutely. Then everything else is kind of like, okay, maybe, sure. Maybe 1 or 2 lower, 1 or 2 higher, whatever.
All right, there we go. Let's move on and talk about our guest. All right, Petey, if you listened to the top of the show, which you did, we were not sure it was going to happen. We're excited. This is one of those, the fans wanted this guy to come on the podcast. We talked about him on the last podcast. And I will ask him if he even remembers this conversation we had. But Petey, why don't you introduce our very special guest?
Yeah, so our very special guest, this guy, I mean, I've known him for about 18 years now. He was around right when I started. I looked up to him as a mentor. I still look up to him as a mentor. And actually, he's a former member of Team Canada. We have Tyson Dux. Tyson, how you doing?
Petey, Dennis, how's it going, guys?
Good, man. We're really excited. The fans are really excited. As I said last podcast, I told a story, and I wasn't sure. This is one of those things where I kind of cleared it with Petey beforehand. Like, I don't want him to think, because you didn't know me. And I'll paint the picture. Tell me if you remember or not. Last set of Impact tapings, we're standing next to each other. I strike up a conversation with you because I know who you are, but you look at me and you could probably think I set the ring up, or I was security, or I was just a fan that snuck in the backstage. You didn't know me from Adam. So we started chatting for a second, and we were talking about your worries about indie wrestling, and then my thoughts about it, comparing it to comedy. I told the story on the podcast, like, oh, I hope Tyson didn't tell me this in confidentiality, and then it turns out that you're mad, and now you have heat, and you're going to beat me up because, look, you have more muscles in one arm than my whole body.
It's not true, because I thought you were security. That's how I thought you were so jacked. I thought, oh, this man's security. I want to have a talk with him.
I like this guy.
Get his rep routine.
I like this guy. But do you remember our conversation?
I do remember the conversation. I don't remember all the details of it. I know we were talking about independent wrestling a little bit, and like how the business has changed drastically in the last 5 years, like just 5 years, the amount of change that has happened is pretty insane, right? So I do remember those parts of the conversations.
So,
but enlighten me a little bit. What was the nitty gritty behind what we were talking about there?
I believe you were questioning. I don't remember if you were worried or if you thought, but you were questioning if indie wrestling can sustain the boom that was going on right now. And then I said, I think so. If you look at what the stand-up comedy sector has done, comparing it to where now the individual talents are growing their fan base with podcasts, and now fans are going to see these guys. And, in the early 90s, comedy clubs were closing up and it was dying. And if you look at it now, it's been going for 10 years straight. And you could probably keep an eye on what happens with comedy and comedy clubs to maybe even predict or parallel where independent wrestling is going with their podcast boom and the boom of that industry now.
Yes, it was. It was a whole thing on the new age of like social media driven and how it's more relatable and guys are more personalized. Yeah, I remember this conversation. Yes. I still feel, because I'm from 21 years now, so I'm back a long way. Like Petey has been at this game a long, long time. I just remember him being younger than me and just chain wrestling with me when we used to go down to shows in Windsor. So like this is so long ago. So I'm from a different generation altogether. I'm from the generation of the old school independent product, and there wasn't many shows, and like companies would die out in a heartbeat. Like I guess it's just the same as the comedy thing. Like comedy clubs would be drying up really quick back in the 90s and stuff like that. It was the same with wrestling, and even the big time leagues like WWF at the time turned WWE. I remember business being booming, and then being with that company working enhancement. And then in the course of 2 years, business went way, way down, and things had changed drastically in the last year I was there when I got hurt. So I guess you're right. I guess I come from an old school mentality that it can't sustain, because wrestling is, as we used to call it, comes and goes in waves. So there's high points and then there's low points. But now it seems as though all it is like high points. Like I guess you're right. I guess it has to do with the whole social media, and everybody's relatable. That's what it is.
All right, so Tyson, I have to put you on the spot because I think I've asked you this question personally a couple times, and you kind of gave me a blow-off answer. And I think you might know what I'm going to say, but just let me back it up. Let me put it out there before I ask the question. So, years ago when I met my ex-wife, I won her over in PWG. She wasn't even a wrestling fan. She was friends with like Samoa Joe's wife, and she saw me do something in the ring that really like caught her eye. And it was like, oh yeah, I'll hang out with this guy, that kind of thing. And I stole it from you. All right. So, I mean, so that's how I know it's over. So first, man, why did you stop doing the dance? Why did you stop doing the dance? I want to know. Dennis probably has hold on. Dennis probably has no idea what I'm talking about, because he this is years ago. People probably don't even remember the dance that fans nowadays. But I remember the dance. I loved it. I thought it was the best thing. Why'd you stop doing the dance?
You know what? I stopped when I stopped doing that dance, because that's what got me my run with WWE. Was
exactly.
They loved it. They thought it was great. They loved it, and like it didn't matter what I did in the ring, as long as I sold and did that dance. They were going to keep bringing me back, right? So that was my money. That's what gave me my in. But what happened was, you know how there's a small window, and then sometimes, you know exactly what I mean. There's going to be a window of opportunity, and then it can be taken away. So I blew out my knee, and I was on the verge of being contracted then. When I blew out my knee and I came back with the same dance, I don't know if it felt forced, or I just wasn't the same as I used to be, but it just didn't catch the same response as it did in the early 2002 when I was doing it. So when I was doing it, it was super, super hot, and then I went back to doing it, and maybe it was me because I was kind of bitter about getting hurt, but maybe I think people read into stuff, and they understand psychology more than they even think they know, where I think they could tell that it just wasn't genuine anymore, and I wasn't happy doing it because I wasn't happy losing out on massive opportunities that I had. And so it just seemed to fade away, and so I just changed everything up because I thought at the time it was the dance itself. It wasn't me. It was the dance itself that wasn't working. So it's really I don't know. I guess it would be hindsight, because had I just kept my attitude in check and stayed positive, I imagine using that dance would have still worked to this day. But it's only you and maybe 3 other human beings still ask about that dance.
What do you think?
Dennis, can I do one follow-up from that?
Please.
Just because about the dance, just because, I mean, I'm telling you, man, like you have no idea how over Tyson was doing this dance. Like I said, I stole it. Like when I was in PWG, like we had to do a dance contest. I don't know how to dance, and I did it. But I guess my follow-up is, so you early 2000s, dance is over, you blow out your ACL, you come back, you're doing the dance, it's not over anymore. Different time in wrestling. Now we're at 2018. I mean, maybe Tyson?
Maybe.
Do you think
maybe?
Like, have you ever thought about just do it at Impact, throw it out there and just see what happens? Like, you see if it sticks, maybe?
You know what? It's funny. I don't know if you're reading my brain or whatever, but I thought at the last set of tapings, I think I might just bust this out.
I'll tell you what, man.
Sake of just busting it out.
I know we were supposed to do that explosion match. Rich Swann got hurt, and they had to put me in Rich Swann's place, so we never got our match. I'm going to make you do the dance right now, because I'll probably be the agent for our own match, and I'm probably going to force you to do the dance if we wrestle. I'm just saying.
Petey, you don't even have to force me to do it, because honest to God, I almost got into that match with Joe Hendry, and I swear to you that I thought in my head just before I went out there, I thought, you know what, screw it. I think I'm just going to bust this out for old time's sake, and I almost did it just to pop you guys more than so than trying to get a job.
That would have been great. That would have been great. Okay.
The crowd.
Moving on from the dance.
The crowd was hot enough. I think they would have gone with you on that journey.
I think so too. They were really primed for whatever was coming that day. So it would have been a good day to do it.
So now I'm going to go more towards a different direction in my line of questioning here. And social media, we talked about it. We talked about podcasts, and we talked about the worries and you being an old schooler now. What is it like being the veteran in the locker room?
It's still weird, because I think in my head, because I'm I guess I feel young at heart. I don't feel my age. Like I know I'm only 40, but I still don't feel even close to 40. But every once in a while, I get a reminder. Like, my children are my greatest measuring stick of, oh, okay, I'm old. Like my oldest kid just graduated from high school. So, and my middle guy is 16, so he's going to be driving soon. So those are my measuring sticks of holy crap, I've been around on this blue ball a long, long time. So being the vet guy in the back is, I guess I've kind of transitioned into this role slowly anyways from being around so long. So it really was such a gradual process. I didn't even see it come on. I didn't even see the whole, you're the vet here. You're the guy that will move our stuff so you can sit your stuff down. I just kind of gradually baby stepped my way into that role. And so now when people tell me, I still don't accept it as much as I should, I guess. I don't know. I feel as though I'm still one of the young guys, and I want to perform the same way they do and stuff like that. But I can definitely tell you with the new style and stuff like that, that every once in a while I will say, listen, I'm an old guy. I'm not going to do that. That's going to really suck. And then they switch it around. So I guess I kind of fluked into this whole thing where I didn't think I was going to be around this long, but here I am, 40 and still going.
You hit on several themes that I get on PD about a lot. And you look, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you support me. But maybe you're the guy I can turn to drive this into Petey Williams' thick skull that at some point he needs to evolve his character, whether he's just like a fill-in guy now, whether his role has changed. He's still doing the same Petey Williams he did in 2004. The only thing that's changed is some stubble in the hair. Help me get it through that he needs to evolve this character a little bit.
Listen, when something's not broke, don't fix it. I think I'm with Petey on this one, because I'm a guy that I'm impatient and I'm impulsive, and I love all forms of wrestling. Like, that's the problem with me, is I'm not about wrestling for me. I'm about wrestling because of wrestling. I just love the whole sports entertainment industry beyond myself. I love it that much. So I'm always like, oh, maybe I'll wear kick pads. Oh, maybe I'll wear boots. Maybe I'll wear long tights. And maybe I'll have a beard. Maybe I won't. I change my stuff all the time because of all the people that I enjoy in this business. I just take from them, and then I kind of emulate a little bit every time. Even my moveset. My moveset changes from show to show. I don't use the same moves twice. I don't use them all. I have maybe a couple finishers that I go back to. But for the most part, I always change up my moveset, my spots. Everything that I do is completely different every show, and it would baffle you. But every time, and I always constantly want to do something different. And that's and that's why I love Petey so much, because he knows what works. And he has done that so well that he has made himself a brand. And he is a good brand. He's a Maple Leaf Muscle. He's got the chainmail headgear. He's the little Papa Pump. He's still all these things. Little Petey Pump. He's all these things. But you can get behind it because he's a brand, and he's branded himself so well that if someone talks to him like, oh, that's Petey Williams. He's, you know what I mean? He's Maple Leaf Muscle. He's little Petey Pump. He's all these things. He's Canadian Destroyer. He's the man that has innovated the move that's overused by everybody else and only should be used by him. It's just that's old school mentality. And that's why I love Petey so much, is that he has stuck with what is good and what is solid and works. So if something works and you're making money and you're on TV, why would you change it? Why would you flip it? Why would you flip the switch?
Petey, so what I'm hearing, Dennis. What I'm hearing you say is you agree with me 100%. Thank you.
Who, me?
Yeah.
So no, it's a thing. Like, at the end of the day, and you look at Vince McMahon too. It's like, everybody needs a character, he says. Like, he doesn't understand unless you have a character. It's like, okay, if you tell Vince McMahon, this guy's a patriotic Canadian destroyer. That's his character. He'd be like, okay, great, fine. Can he work? That's the next question. So, I mean, I'm just playing a character on TV. Is there evolution to it? Absolutely. I mean, I could turn on my own country if I wanted to. That has never come up yet, but that would be pretty devastating, and a huge change of the character. But speaking of changing characters, so Tyson, I remember, man, I don't even know how long ago it was. Like, maybe I want to say within the last year, but I could be wrong. You had that huge beard, like the Eric Young beard that, he has now. So, like, what made you want to shave it? Was it just like changing character? And how long ago was that? Am I like mistiming this? Like, was it a year ago or?
You know what? It's funny that I shaved that beard. I started growing it when my son was born. So it was 21 months or not 21 months. It's over a year and a half of beard growth. Like, there was a lot involved. And I always do that. Like, so I had a beard before, and it was massive. And I did the Cruiserweight Classic for WWE, and I shaved it when I lost because I thought it was like almost like starting over. And so in my head, I know it sounds weird, but it's almost, and I know Scott gave me so much heat for this. He says, what are you doing? People identify with the way you look now, and now you're shaving it. But in my head, I had to have a clean slate, a clean start, because of not after the Cruiserweight Classic, I was supposed to be brought back, and then I had border issues. I couldn't get back. So what I did is I just took the beard off. So that's basically where it went, is I shaved it off. And then the second time I shaved it off is there's a little company here in Toronto called Smash, and I was the champ for 2 years. And then when I lost my title, after the 2 years, I thought, you know what? I'm going to do a clean sweep. And so I shaved it off again. And, of course, I love the beard anyways. I like going back to it. So it's coming back, actually. It's growing now. It's I'm hoping this time I'll call you, Petey, and say, listen, I'm thinking about shaving this beard. What do you think? And I'll probably get you to say no. That's what I'm going to do.
Absolutely.
I'm going to have an intervention. Yeah. There you go. Intervention next time.
Earlier you mentioned that you were in a downward spiral in your career. Maybe not the word you would use, but I threw it in there for creative license here. What turned you around? What brought you out? Got your, you said you kind of had an attitude. You were mad about the knee injury. You were kind of taking it out. What turned you around and turned you into the Tyson Dux you are today?
Oh, I think it was a lot of things. It takes a lot. You have to go through a lot of stuff, and I think sometimes they always talk about it. It's cliche. You have to hit rock bottom. I never really hit rock bottom, but I remember not wanting to do it anymore. When I blew out my knee, I just came back, and my window had gone. They weren't interested in me. Nobody was really going for the dance anymore. I thought maybe this isn't for me anymore. Maybe I did. Oh, you know what I did? It was with Petey too. Petey won it that year. It was Super 8. And the year before that, I was supposed to be on Super 8. And then I blew out my knee just a week before. And so I trained and tried to get ready for the Super 8 the second year round. And I thought it was great because me and Petey were going down together, and Alex Shelley was there. And it was going to be it was a good time. It was a bunch of us guys from Windsor area, Detroit, Windsor. And I thought, this is great. We can all just do our thing and do all right. And then my match didn't go well. Nothing seemed to go well. It just wasn't the highlight that I thought it was. And I was just so dejected when I came home, and my knee wasn't right. Nothing was right, and gear wasn't right. I wasn't feeling it anymore. And so I did the bills started adding up, and I had to think, man, maybe I just need a big boy job. Maybe I need to grow up a bit here and do something else. And I sold all my gear. I think the last straw was I went to a promoter to ask, hey, can I get on the show or whatever? And then he lowballed me this terrible offer because he says I wasn't anybody anymore. I hadn't done anything in a while, so who was I to ask for anything? And I thought, well, I'm just going to sell my stuff to pay for some bills and then just be done with this whole scene. And that was really sad. It wasn't a low point. It's not rock bottom. It's not like I'm on an alleyway or whatever. I have 2 wonderful kids. I had a job. I was secure, but it was just a sad time. I was so sad that the thing that I love more than anything, like I love wrestling more than anything, just didn't love me back. So I think what it was is I just switched it up. I worked out harder. I changed my look. I had this, Petey knows, this obnoxious blonde mohawk. And then I got in superb shape. I took the time to work out a lot more and focus on not being the silly, goofy guy, but working a more of a serious style. And I just got back to loving wrestling for wrestling, and once I got on shows and started working harder in a more physical role, people seemed to appreciate what I was doing. And it just spiraled from there. I just got back in the swing of it, and I just got back to what I loved about it. And that's everything. That's basically what brought me back. It was just changing my own mindset and just getting over myself and getting over the fact that, it's never gonna love you back. It's show business. Show business is never gonna love you back. It's either you just give it and you love it, or it's just gonna spit you out. So that's what I did.
Petey, I've got at least 2 more questions before we send them out of the way. What do you have?
I have so much. Go ahead, Dennis. Go ahead.
All right. You love wrestling, and this is essentially your and I first date. Sure, we flirted at the show, but now I need to know how much wrestling do you watch now? What was the wrestling moment that got you hooked on the industry?
My wrestling moment, and I've said this, I've done this a million times over. This story is my mom brought me home a coloring book when I was a kid because we had no cable TV. I lived on a farm in the east coast of New Brunswick, this small little village community. So we didn't have very much. I had a little TV station that got 2 channels. And then I remember my mom brought me home this coloring book, and it was the Rockin' Wrestling coloring book. And it had larger-than-life characters like Hulk Hogan and Hillbilly Jim and the Iron Sheik and Roddy Piper. And I was completely infatuated with this. Like, I had no idea what this was, but all I wanted to do was I wanted to find out more about it, like about this comic book and these little characters. And I was only 5, 6 years old, and there's something about it that drew me to it. And then eventually my friends knew about it, and then that's how I found WWF, and then it just started from there. So even from a small kid, like a young kid of 5, 6 years old, just seeing something so simple as a comic book or coloring book totally switched my whole passion and drive towards something. I know it sounds weird, and it almost sounds like it's impossible, but that's exactly that's when I was hooked from that moment on.
And wrestling now, do you still watch it now that you're back doing it and you're happy and you're loving it? Petey's the kind of guy that when he's wrestling, he doesn't really watch much wrestling. When he was retired, he watched a ton of it.
I watch it all the time. I study always. I'm always studying. I don't even I know these kids on the indie scene that have only been around for maybe a year or 2 out of companies like CZW and MLW, all these new places that are popping up everywhere. I watch it all. I watch Lucha Libre. I watch Japanese wrestling. I try to stay as ahead of the game and updated with WWE and Impact as I can. I don't get to all the show. I don't watch the whole show. I just watch matches and listen for like online when people say, hey, this was really good and stuff like that. So I study all the time because I just want to see, like we were talking about, the business of how it is and how it comes and goes in waves and stuff like that. And I'm curious, and I'm studying for that reason as well. I want to see where it can go, and like, where's it going to go? Like, will there be a bottom? Will the balloon pop, or will we just keep rolling? Will it still be good in the next 10 years? Will we still be rolling hard? So, and it's just kind of like an experiment for me to watch and see how things change and how things stay the same. It's funny though, like the style is so different, like so different when me and Petey were young. It is a completely different game altogether. Like it's, and I would like for this new style that has a lot of cool innovation and a lot of beautiful athleticism to to look at our side when we started and see the beauty of storytelling and psychology and selling. And if they could just make that little, if they could work with each other, the sport would be on fire for years to come. But it just depends to see if we can bridge the gap between old school and new school.
And my final question, Petey, I'll let you wrap this up when I'm done.
Okay.
40 years old, you're loving wrestling. Do you set new goals now? What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish when it's time for you to officially and finally hang up the boots?
I don't think I'll ever. I thought years ago I was going to put a time limit on it, and I gave myself, when I was younger, because I started when I was like 18, 19 years old. That's like the 18-19 split is when I started wrestling. And I thought, well, at close to 30. So 27, I'll think if I don't make it to WWE, because that really was the only place back then. If I don't make it to WWE, then I'll give it up. And then 27 came, and I was just starting to get on a great roll. I was at ROH. I was at Impact. I was in Japan. I was like making some real waves. And I thought, well, no, I'm not going to quit now. I'm just getting started. So because it takes that long to really figure that stuff out. It takes so long to figure this business out. So then I decided 35. If I haven't made it by 35, I'm out. I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. 35 comes around. I'm still rolling good. Like I still get to go to like places like All Japan. Things are always in the works. I get to go down to the Performance Center. I get a few spots with WWE. Like things are still moving. So I'm at 40. I'm still doing Impact tapings. I still have. I'm going to Puerto Rico this fall. I have a multitude of offers that are coming in, and good experiences that I can't talk about, but that are like great experiences that are still coming. And I think at 40 that I'm like, well, I'm 40 and my whole life now revolves around it. I have my own wrestling school, and that's basically my whole income now is my school. And my son, who is 16, has started to train, and he wants to do it now. So now I have him. And I think, you know what? I'm never going to hang him up. I think I'll just, like, the last thing for me will be just like that, the wrestler of the movie. You just won't know. I'll just dive off the top rope, and you just won't know. Did Tyson die in the ring, or what was it? Or when did he die? Because that's how I picture myself going out, as morbid as that sounds. But I've always put a little bit of a timeline on myself. And I thought, you know what, screw it. I'm just not doing the timeline anymore. If I feel good and my work is still adequate enough that people are entertained, I will keep going until the day I die.
No, I hear you, Tyson. I mean, I put timelines on mine, and look at me. I'm back. I said I was never going to come back. And honestly, I know Dannis has questions. For me, I just want to more reminisce with you. I know when we see each other at the Impact tapings, like we're both busy. We both have matches. I'm doing agenting stuff and stuff. So I'm more of a reminiscer guy than a question guy. But I know you have a school and stuff. You're on social media and everything. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and what you got going on?
Well, it's real easy. My social media, I've linked it up so it's easy because as we know at the start of this whole podcast when we're trying to get it together, how terrible I am at technology. You guys know this. I'm awful. So like I've just made everything so simple that even I, like a guy like me, can run it. So everything is under just Tyson Dux, D-U-X, not D-U-K-E-S. It's D-U-X. And that's how you can find me. You can find me at Tyson Dux on Instagram, on Twitter. Like if you look on Facebook, you'll find my little school. It's just the Wrestling Factory. You just have to put in Tyson Dux, and you'll find everything you need if you want to see my ugly face.
I would say
awesome, Tyson. Hey, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on and talking with us, man. It was great to catch up.
It was good. Thank you very much for having me. Actually, it was a lot of fun.
Wow, what a fun interview with Tyson Dux, Pete.
See, here's the thing. Sometimes we get like the big, huge stars, and it's kind of like awkward because like we're not close or whatever, but Tyson and I are really close. And I just, you could see it when we did like Frank Kazarian and stuff. It's like we just have like this bond, and I just like shooting the breeze. And, like I don't get to do that with Tyson anymore, because whenever we see each other at shows and we're so busy, and it's so much fun talking to him and just being able to like sit back and just talk wrestling.
I hope he becomes a fan of our podcast now.
Hey, I know he has a lot going on and stuff like that. But I sure hope so too. I mean,
we're gonna have to start a campaign to get Dukes to listen, right? Hashtag listen Dukes.
We have a lot of campaigns going on, so yeah, we can make another one, sure.
Why not? Let's wrap this podcast up. There was something we didn't touch on before the interview that I wanted to talk about now. You went to a show without me, and I'm not gonna lie, I was sad. It was like,
were you really?
Were
you really sad?
It was like mom and dad going on a vacation for the weekend, and they left you with a babysitter, and you just couldn't figure out why they wouldn't want to take you to Las Vegas or something fun, and you're left at home, and then all of a sudden you get the text like, "Oh yeah, I'm in Canada for a show." It's like, I didn't even know you had a show.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. It was Mississauga. It was just like a quick day trip. I didn't know if you wanted to tag along. I'll invite you next. All shows moving forward, I'll invite you. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of a big one. It was one of our one night only pay-per-views. It's going to air actually this Friday, August 31st. Don't know what time, but it'll be available on the Global Wrestling Network app. And guess who I wrestled?
I'm going to say Tyson Dux.
No, he wasn't there. No, Michael Elgan.
Oh, wow. New Japan Pro Wrestling, right?
Yeah. So how it came about was it's a little bit inside baseball. So originally I wasn't supposed to be on the Slamversary card. This is back in, when was Slamversary? July-ish?
Yep. It's on it's on the Slamversary podcast. You can go back and listen to it if you want, guys.
Okay. So I wasn't supposed to be on that card. But I asked Sanjay, I'm like, hey, I know you guys usually have me agent. Can I just agent the show and so on? I just wanted to be a part of Slamversary. And he says, yeah, I'll talk to Scott. Scott texted me and he said, hey, do you want to do Destiny Pro Wrestling on August 25th? You'll be wrestling Michael Elgan. And I don't know if he was trying to pitch that as like, hey, you'll have an awesome match kind of deal. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, man, Michael Elgan is awesome. He's going to want to do a lot of stuff. I don't know if I am like physically capable of working that hard. But I did want to get on Slamversary. So I said, Scott, I will do it on one condition. You book me for Slamversary. He says, deal. And I'm like, awesome. 2 paydays for the price of one. So I'm thinking I'm not going to work or anything. And then Rich Swann gets hurt and I have to end up working. They would have booked me anyways. But yeah, so we went up there and Michael Elgan, let me tell you, he had me wrestling like I was 23 years old again. Like it was like 14 years ago or whatever. Like he had me doing, I think I created a list of like, I think it was like 5 to 8 things that I've never done in a professional wrestling match before. Either moves that I've given or taken or just like things that I haven't done that he had me doing. And we did a 20-minute match and it was, I loved it. I mean, it was super hard work. I really worked for my money that day. But like Don Callis and Scott D'Amore, who were on commentary for that one night only pay-per-view, they came back to us afterwards and they're both like, oh my God, that match was effing awesome. Like unbelievable. And obviously we were like, oh, thank you. Any feedback? And they're like, no, like that was great. Like Scott was even saying like, man, I think at one point I blew out my audio on my headset because I was screaming so loud. So, I mean, it was just kudos to Michael Elgan because I wouldn't have worked that hard unless he pushed me to work that hard. Like he literally pushed me to my limits. And I'm telling him, I'm like, man, this is a lot of stuff that I have to remember. And like, man, I'm probably going to mess this up because I've never done it before and stuff. And he goes, no. He's like, it's all going to go off perfectly. You just watch. And Michael Elgan's one of those guys, I mean, you talk about guys basing you in the ring, like that are strong and stuff. He's probably one of like, okay, so as a lighter guy, if I go and do a move on a guy or jump on a guy, I might want to protect myself a little bit more or position myself. Like if this gets messed up when you're with a guy like Elgan, I'm just going to jump and I know you're going to catch me and put me where I need to be. Like I don't have any doubt. I don't have any, I know I'm not going to get hurt with him just because he's that strong and he's that good. Him and Cesaro are probably on the same level, like the two strongest guys that I could just, they'll put me where I need to be. I almost feel like a baby in their arms because they're so strong.
Aw, that's so sweet.
I know. But yeah, it was a phenomenal match. And, we even like DM'd each other afterwards, like, hey, we had a great time. I hope we get to do it again. Like it was, I don't want to do it every day because I haven't worked that hard in probably 10 years, but I really enjoyed it. I really needed that match in my career.
That's awesome. And by the way, you'll be in Las Vegas for a Impact show, right?
Correct. As it stands right now, yes. I don't know what's going to happen in the near future because I don't know if they're going to need me or whatever, but it all depends on the booking and what the storylines go and stuff like that. But yes, Las Vegas in November, I think like the 11th, 12th, maybe the 13th. I don't remember the dates off the top of my head. Well, I don't even know if they're announced yet. So this could be breaking news.
I believe they are announced. I have seen them posted. Okay. Unfortunately, one of those nights is my birthday. So, I hope they don't need you.
When's your birthday? The 12th?
Yes, of November.
Yeah. 12th of November. I remember that. That's why I said the 12th. So, are you coming to Vegas or?
No, God, no. If my wife won't let me go to StarCast, she's not going to let me go to Vegas without her. And I don't want to take her. It's not even not even an option.
Well, this is one of the shows I'm probably going to actually bring my wife. We love Vegas. I love going to Vegas, man. There's something about that town. I think everybody, if you've been there, it's like, we're going to Vegas kind of deal. So I'm excited. I've actually never done a wrestling show in Vegas before. I remember one time we had a TV taping in Vegas. We did all this. It was actually a big Impact TV taping because we're actually switching, and this just goes to show how long ago it was, from like regular definition TV, if that's what you want to call it, to high definition. So this is our first like HD show, right? Spike was switching over to HD and Impact was switching over to HD. So we're like, yeah, we're doing it in Vegas. And I remember we filmed all these things where we did these like still shots and like motion shots and stuff. And they didn't even put me on a show. And I was sat at home and watched it from home. And I didn't get to compete on a show in Vegas. So my feelings were hurt. But now I get to totally redeem myself.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
But where I was going before I went into emo Dannis mode there, you were at a show without me, and you sent me a weird text that said there were people talking about me, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, so Dave, Chris, obviously, I was talking about, I think you guys are going to a football game coming up this Thursday?
No, he backed out.
Oh, did he? Okay. Well, maybe I can go with you. I don't know. But I know he was planning on it because he was one that told me about it and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And then one of I believe he was a camera guy I was asking about, where's Dannis? And I'm like, I don't even know who you are, but he didn't make it today. So people are asking about you. You've been around so much the past little bit on Impact that you've made an impression where people are asking, when they see me, they ask, where's Dannis? Like as if we are attached at the hip or something like that.
That made me smile when you sent me that text. And I think I was like, you're messing with me, aren't you? You're like, no.
No, this is exactly, and this was the plan, like from the beginning. I'm like, people will see me and then expect to see you, or see you and expect to see me. It's kind of like, and that's your way into the business. And then you get a job, and then we're both best friends in the wrestling business, and this is great. I mean, that was my plan from the beginning.
Well, we're both best friends. I've yet to have my job in the wrestling business, so I'm still waiting on that part.
You know what? I should have got you a commentary job or like a ring announcing job for that one night only. You know what? Let me. I got to rethink this.
Yeah,
I
know.
Bring this back to Scott. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, my buddy. Why don't we put him on a pay-per-view just for fun?
Yeah.
It's like a
We should do
Make-A-Wish, but I'm not sick.
Oh man.
All right. And
Hey, we weren't recording, but Dennis was like, you're like, oh, you probably don't even remember what I look like. The nice, handsome guy with the glasses, kind of like Superman or Clark Kent or whatever he said.
yes, and then he's like, he was joking, but he's like, I thought you were security, which he kind of probably did.
No, that was a joke right there. But no, he knew that. Here's the thing. People are already asking, like, when they see me, hey, where's Dennis? So people know that, we're boys. And, like, when they see you, they're like, oh, he's with Petey. Or if they were to see you at a wrestling show, they'd be like, oh, where's Petey? Is Petey here? If they saw you first kind of deal. So that's good. People know who you are.
And finally, before we promote a little bit and send everybody home from this hour-long marathon, which is even longer for us because little do you guys know that Tyson Dux, it probably took us 30 minutes to even get it right. There were three attempts. Then there was a kid that we had to wait for. It was crazy, but it was worth it. But
yeah, we've been doing this for like 4 hours right now. We just blocked it into 1 hour slot.
Because we love our fans, we're going to be honest with you. My schedule is changing coming up, and that means there could be changes to our recording schedule, PD. We haven't quite figured it out. I think next week will be the same wrestling perspective that you've all come to know and love. After that, it might be dropping on a different day. We may drop it. We may have to record it 4 days earlier and drop it on Thursday. The change in the days mean there's probably going to be less guests. We haven't really talked in private about how it's actually going to impact the podcast, but there are going to be some changes that will probably be made due to my scheduling conflicts, Pete.
Yeah, so I mean, you'll still get a podcast every week. I'm pretty confident with that.
99.9%.
Yeah, I mean, guest-wise, I mean, there might be a lack of guests. We'll see. If we have to record on the weekends, then so be it. We'll make sure we record for you guys. The problem is with the weekends, a lot of the, guests that we'd have, they do wrestling shows on the weekends, so they might not have the availability to actually come on the show. So we'll get it all figured out, though, and at least we'll have, our wrestling that's a tongue twister, a wrestling perspective for you, regardless.
Yeah, each week we'll still be doing it. In the shows, if we still do show stuff, I don't know if I'll be able to make as many shows as I hope with this schedule change, but we will do our best to still give you some sort. It might be a once a month thing, and that's kind of something I think you and I have lost touch on, that we didn't really want to be guest heavy when we started doing this. We wanted to be just you and I shooting it and growing our brand and not being reliant. Then we thought, let's bring people in. And we've been probably more than we want guest heavy. Hopefully next week, as a going away guest kind of thing, maybe we get the mother of all guests, and that's all I'll say.
Okay.
Right?
You want my mother on this podcast? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if she even knows about wrestling, but sure.
She knows about little Petey Williams. That's the only wrestler that matters right now. But a lot of things are going to change, but Petey and I will promise to keep you guys updated. We'll be 100% honest with you and let you know what changes, why they're being made. It's not lack of trying. Trust me, it's just something that is going to happen. But we will have a wrestling perspective. You may just drop on Friday or Saturday night. It might drop on Monday night, but either way, we'll still have a show for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the goal at the end of the day. Weekly show.
Yep.
Weekly show.
You sounded really Canadian there, Pete.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to talk with my American accent. It's not working.
Finally, promote what's going on. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at ipetywilliams, and on every Thursday night at Impact. I know this Impact coming up. This is our big. It's not a pay-per-view. It's like I don't even know what you want to call it.
Your version of Clash of
one
the
of
Champions?
Yeah, whatever, like a special.
Mm-hmm.
That's redefined, and I will be wrestling against Rich Swann for our first time ever match. So I already pre-screened it. I got the show sent to me ahead of time, and I don't want to do any spoilers because it airs tomorrow, 8 p.m. And but I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Will you've watched the whole show?
Yep.
Will you spoil one thing for me?
Okay, maybe.
How is the sign? This is
So
show,
the sign.
yes, show 2.
The sign is not as good. I point to it when I come out.
Do you? Did it get a good camera picture of it?
This is not show 2. This is still night 1. It's show 2.
Yes.
We do 2 shows in one night.
Right.
It's still night 1.
Second show.
Yeah, it's still.
Yeah, I know.
It's still blacked out. So we'll have to wait till the following week, next week, to when that really it really pops.
Right.
I made them switch it to the white. So we'll see how it looks next week. This week I point to it. You can't even really tell, Dennis. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm pointing to the sign, and it's like you can't even see Wrestling Perspective. So I'm a little bit disappointed, but at the same time, very grateful that they made this sign.
I'm disappointed in them. Darn it.
No, I'm still really grateful that they made the sign and stuff like that. I'm really happy that I pointed out hey, that doesn't look good on TV, and they were they've spent all night working on it, and I'm hoping next week when I do the show, it really pops on the show.
I'm excited for that. But whatever PD's pointing at is a Wrestling Perspective sign, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, just look out for that, I guess.
There you go, guys. It's this week's Wrestling Perspective. As I said, top of the show. If you're still listening, go to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. Subscribe to the podcast. Talk to us. Let us know. Email us at WrestlingPerspective@gmail.com if you ever have any questions, comments, concerns. One of our social media staff will get to you as soon as possible, which is me. Outside of that, guys, follow him. Petey Williams. Follow me at Dannis77 Farrell. WrestlingPerspective.podbean.com if you just want to listen off the website. Thank you, guys. Great show, Petey. Let's just say goodnight and end it now.
Staff. All right. Good night.
Good night.